Hello, I'm Rodney Whitaker, Director of Jazz Studies at the College of Music at Michigan State University. I'd like to welcome you all to Jazz Spectacular, and I'd like to give a thank you to our sponsors, the Jazz Club, who's helped to keep the music going during the pandemic. And I'd like to also say a special thank you to Leonard and Sharon Tabakov for their support of Jazz Spectacular. For this, we thank you.
Jeff Hamilton was born in Richmond, Indiana on August 4th, 1953. He grew up listening to his parents' big band records and at the age of 8 began playing drums along with Oscar Peterson records. He attended Indiana University where he met his lifetime friend and music collaborator, Mr. John Clayton. Jeff left Indiana University to study with his mentor, Mr. John Von Olden. Jeff was influenced by Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Mel Lewis, Philly Joe Jones, and Shelly Manne. In 1974, Jeff got his first big break playing with the new Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. After his tenure with the Dorsey Band, Jeff joined Lionel Hampton's band. In 1975, Jeff, along with bassist John Clayton, became members of the Monty Alexander Trio, doing many tours and recordings. In 1977, Jeff attained a childhood goal when he joined Woody Herman and the Thundering Herd. Jeff also had the opportunity to record multiple projects with the band. In 1978, Jeff was offered the position vacated by Shelly Manne in the group LA 4. He recorded 6 records with the LA 4, some of which featured his own arrangements and compositions, including this one here entitled Hammer Tones. In 1985, Jeff joined with bassist John Clayton and saxophonist Jeff Clayton to form the world-renowned Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra. In 1988, Jeff began his association with the Ray Brown Trio, touring the world and recording at least 8 albums as a trio. In March of 1995, Jeff left the Ray Brown Trio to concentrate on his own trio. Since this time, Jeff's trio has toured around the world and recorded at least 17 albums under its own name and the trio's name with guests. Jeff has shared the stage with so many legendary musicians, including Ella Fitzgerald, the Count Basie Orchestra, Natalie Cole, Diana Krall, Bill Holman, James Moody, Oscar Peterson, and countless others. Jeff is on hundreds of albums as a sideman, too numerous to mention here. Jeff has been on the cover of many jazz and drum magazines, most recently the Jazz Times. 2011, Jeff started being a part of the judges panel at the prestigious Jazz at Lincoln Center Essentially Ellington competition. Jeff also designs drums, cymbals, and equipment, which includes his Hammertone cymbal line, Maximus snare drum, signature sticks and brushes, and cymbal stand model. Before COVID-19, Jeff was touring around the world, conducting many educational workshops and performing many concerts with the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra, his own trio, and the Akiko Hamilton Dector Group. Over the past year, Jeff has taught many online workshops, done many interviews, and released a critically acclaimed CD with the Jeff Hamilton Trio entitled Catch Me If You Can. Professor Rodney Whitaker and the Jazz Studies program at Michigan State University are pleased and honored to virtually welcome back Mr. Jeff Hamilton.
Welcome!
Wow. Am I supposed to retire now?
You told me you've been busy for the last 40 years.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, despite what these people may think of me, I could keep a job if I wanted to. Thank you for that, Max. That was really beautiful. Great memories and some things that I hadn't thought of in quite a while. So thank you.
Good. Well, it's so good to have you here. You know your family here at Michigan State, and Professor Whitaker has had you out numerous times. And of course, your family with me, and you hold a very dear spot in my heart. So welcome. And the only problem is you're not here, but
Sure.
This is the next best thing. So we're thankful for technology.
We're going to keep working on that and going to fix it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, so all three of our guests, which were our Jazz Spectacular, Carmen Bradford, you, and Mr. John Faddis, you all hold court pretty well. And so you guys are probably the easiest softball interviews, because I could probably say three things and there goes the hour and we're done. And you have famed stories, but I'm actually trying to go a little different place with you, because a lot of that information is out there and can be obtained. And there's an educational component that we have to our festival each year, which we couldn't do this year, obviously. So some of my thinking and some of these questions are both to allow you to share your journey and your story, but also things that I believe students can learn from some of the way that I want to go with this. So I've observed you pretty close, almost to the point of stalking sometimes with you. And I came up with some adjectives that I think, for me, describe me. I could be really out to lunch on that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. All positive, all positive. And I think they are all life skills, for lack of better terms, of some of these concepts and characteristics that I see in you. And so I thought maybe try to get a little deeper into what makes you tick, why you do some of the things you do. And I think that this could be really beneficial to some of our students. So if you're willing, we'll get started.
All right, but I do want to ask you something. I've been concerned about you for so many years that you show up in all these places that I least expect to see you. I wonder, are you still homeless, or have you found a place to live?
I have found a home during COVID. So
Okay, all right, good. I feel better about things, Max. I mean, you're everywhere, man. I can't, I think Johnny Cash wrote that song about you. I've been everywhere, man.
I do
That's
know
you.
that if I'm going to be homeless, I'm coming to your place, because I can just sit on the beach and be warm rather than this cold Michigan winters. That's just dumb.
Okay, all
So,
right. You're welcome to.
all right, so I got basically about 8 adjectives, phrases, and I'll share some of the stories of why I've heard it, and you can either tell the stories or whatever with those, and then maybe I have about 4 different questions that are unrelated after that if we have the time. So the first thing that I see about you is just this incredibly strong work ethic. you have this Midwestern upbringing. You have the band director that made you do 25 push-ups if you performed poorly. You have this kind of a militaristic father in ways. So you definitely had this tough skin. My feeling is that you just strive for excellence all the time. And if you were going to be a plumber, you would be the best plumber on the planet. If you, and we'll talk about, I got it a little later, I'll talk about your baseball career that could have been, and we're all thankful. But, so, I have a friend who says success is when preparation meets opportunity. And the last thing I wanted to say about your work ethic is that you talk all the time about how you set goals and then you set out who you wanted to play with. And then we kind of just leave it at, I went out and got every Oscar Peterson albums. But can you unpack a little bit more, and with your history and stuff, what did that actually entail? Did it mean you listened to these records 100 times so you could sing every note and then you started playing? Did you transcribe? How did you, what was the process so that when Oscar Peterson called, you were ready to go?
Well, yes, what you just said really about listening and different ways of listening. I've always been able to focus really well when I'm listening to something. And if I want to pick out the third trombone player in the band, I can do that and follow through the whole piece, find out how important that is to the piece. One of the things John Von Ohlen stressed was if you're going to be a good big band drummer, you got to know all the music inside out. You can't just get the shout chorus and the lead trumpet player and maybe the bass player. I mean, you got to know what everybody's doing all the time in the band. So funny story, one day my mother asked me to go clean my room, and I was about, I don't know, 15 or something, and she heard Buddy Rich's record coming out of the bedroom door, and so she opened the door. She said, "I thought I told you to clean the bedroom. What are you doing?" I said, "Mom," and being a church organist, could understand this. I said, "Mom, come here and listen to the trombone section. You hear the second trombone player is playing something in the bass, then the third trombone." I said, and she goes, "All right, but after you listen to that, clean your room." So I had support for being weird, if you will, for those times of knowing what I wanted to do. I was kind of an oddball because I knew, not with my classmates. I mean, I was friends with my class. I was, on student council and all that, and president of a band captain and all that. So I mean, I had a lot of friends, but they understood my passion for the music. And John Clayton and I have talked about this for years, that, and others, of course, that music chooses you. The genre chooses you. You don't just sit down and say, "I'm going to be a bebop saxophone player." You hear Charlie Parker, you go, "I don't have a choice. I've got to do this." And I think the people who don't have that passion for the music, you kind of can tell after a while, and there's not that deep-seated passion for it. So now, does the talent meet the passion? And how do you make those things happen to achieve what you want? And John Clayton, who had spent some time with Ray Brown when we first met at Indiana University, John said, "Who do you want to play with?" And I gave him 4 people I wanted to play with. We've heard these in other interviews: Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Woody Herman, and Count Basie Orchestra. And he said, "Well, you'll do that." And I said, "Well, how?" And he's the one who said, "Get every recording, learn everything on the recording, know every drummer that's played in that band, know what the band leader likes in a drummer, learn everything about the leader, where they're from, and you're gonna learn if you really want to be in that band." There are a few bands that I canceled on that I thought I wanted to be in, and the more I heard them, I thought,
Mm.
I don't know if I want to be in this band. So that's why I really kept coming back to the 4 choices I gave you. But it's transcribing, especially not for the band so much that I wanted to be on, but the drummers from other bands that I wanted to incorporate in those bands. So that's where Philly Joe came in a lot, and Mel Lewis played on every band that I wanted, except, well, he wasn't in Oscar's quartet, but every drummer, everybody I wanted to play with, these guys had rubbed elbows with. So Ed Thigpen was another major influence. I didn't get to meet him until '78, but we were instant friends. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't just put on while you're in your car, you don't just turn music on and la da 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 while you're going through. I mean, it's like dissecting everything in that recording and making it your own, and then playing along to those note for note. And I did transcribe Ed Thigpen's comping on a few things to play exactly what he was playing, to understand what Oscar wanted with comping. And I ended up putting my left hand in my pocket for most of it, because Oscar was playing so much that he didn't need anything else, And there were stories where he would turn around and say, I got it. Put your left hand away. Just too much chatter. Put your left hand in your pocket. But ironically, by the time I joined him in 1990 and spent 5 years with Oscar, he was asking for more from me. He wanted more. I guess the group had evolved a little bit to where he wanted more activity from the drums. So, throw away all the homework. A lot of good it did me. Thanks, Ed. So yeah, I think how serious are you about that to be fortunate enough, which I want to speak on for a minute. I get so tired of people telling us that we're lucky to be where we are. We're lucky to be playing with such and such. Lucky is when you go to Las Vegas and you pull the slot machine arm and you win $1,000. That's lucky. Fortunate is working your butt off in the right direction you want to set your goals in, and then achieving those goals. And you're fortunate that you get the opportunity. Then what do you do with the opportunity? You're lucky to get the opportunity, maybe, but you're fortunate when you seize the opportunity and nobody else thinks of anybody else in that drum chair except you. So the lucky thing has always bugged me. So it's like, no, no, we've been doing this since we were kids, and it's not luck. There's a big difference in being fortunate to get what you do and being lucky.
I hear this. I hear the same thing about, well, he's just talented and stuff. No, you
Right,
practice 12 hours a day.
right, right. No, it's true. Yeah.
So
You
you
got
beat
to know what to do. Max, you have to, you know this. You got to know what to do with the talent. You got to guide it.
right.
Look at how many basketball players, are misguided. They're more talented than anybody in the world, but they didn't know what to do when they got to a certain point. I mean, there's a lot more than just being talented.
Trying to get the free throw line. You know how
Yeah.
many games I've watched in the tournament of people who can't make a free throw, an uncontested shot?
Oh, you watched Indiana games before the tournament started. Okay.
But going back to your Indiana, Steve Alford, didn't he like shoot 100 free throws after every game or before every
Yes.
game or something?
Yes.
So
Yes.
in practice.
Yeah. So that's why he got lucky in games.
Well, you beat me to the punch on another one, so I think we already covered it. But the word obviously is passionate, and for you, it started really easy because there's a story that when you were 8 years old, your band director saw that passion in you.
Yeah, that's true. Ralph Burkhart, who was the orchestra director in Richmond, Indiana, for the high school and for elementary schools and junior high, and he had my two older sisters in class. They were musicians as well, coming through school. So he trusted the family trait that I had some talent, and I could read music because of my piano lessons, starting at 5 years old. So I was the section leader in the drum section in a fifth grade summer band at 8 years old. He let me in early. And after the concert, pulled my parents aside and said, we need to get him with a private teacher. The private teacher in town for me is this rudimental teacher, military style, John McMahon. And that was the beginning. And you mentioned my father coming from the military. He wasn't a military career guy, but he had his discipline, self-discipline from that and from being a great athlete in high school. And so he passed that on to me. And the drum teacher was the same mentality. It was like they both said the same thing to me. I'm going to tell you this once, don't make me tell you again. And that didn't mean you were going to get a beating. That just meant don't waste my time, and you're too good to have me tell you again at something. You've got too much going. My drum teacher said, if you bring a lesson back 2 weeks in a row, I'm cutting you loose because I have a waiting list of 10-year-olds that want to study with me. So, I'm getting stereo discipline from these people, and I I didn't mess up that much, and I was quick in learning the rudiments, and I didn't have to spend a lot of. I never practiced more than an hour a day on that stuff, and I'd practice an hour every day because I wanted to go out and play baseball with my friends. And so that was my goal: get this practice over with and nail it so you can go play baseball. And that's just kind of what drew me to, and just kept driving me to what I wanted, and then listening to different things and being passionate about big band drumming through the people you mentioned earlier. and buying all their records and learn, and then applying the rudiments from the rudimental snare drum for 5 years before I got a drum set because I wasn't old enough to win the competition, which you had to do before he would move you to drum set, So I had these little machine hands wind Jeffy up and let him blow the windows out, with the snare drum. And so I learned that the rudiments were applied very easily with Gene and Louis Bellson and Buddy Rich and that was my guide. If I keep these rudiments going, then I can play it. So I became kind of a Buddy Rich wannabe until later on, and I didn't make a big band at Indiana University because I was too much like Buddy Rich, and David Baker wanted more space and colors. So then the second semester I got in a band, but 52 percussion majors, and I was odd man out with all that talent. I wasn't so lucky then. So yeah, you kind of find your own path, and I found that the rudiments directed me more toward the big band drumming that I really loved, and I identified that passion. I didn't really like quintets.
Okay.
I like piano trios and big bands, and I kind of left everything in the middle till a later time. Now, those are the two ensemble sizes that really got me from 8 years old.
So we kind of touched on another two. One I put down was
Well,
patience.
Max, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm doing this because I'm a very busy man. I'm trying to knock out two questions at one time so I can get on with things. I have a flight for New York on Tuesday, so
So you mentioned patience, and I'm just like even something, and I was going to bring up the story that you told about having to get through this snare rudimental thing. Were you itching like I want to play drum set and I want to play it now, or were you chill and like I know what I got to do, and you kind of just understood it?
yeah, I was itching to do it, but I wasn't rebellious about it. I understood the process, and instead of being bugged that I couldn't get the snare drum because I couldn't enter the contest, I was still grateful that this teacher accepted me as an 8-year-old. He
Sure.
was like the bee's knees, and I could see the progress I was making with this guy. So I was content. If I'm going to be a professional snare drummer at 13 years old, then that's what I'm going to do. And if the drum set evolves out of that, then more power to. But man, I'm happy being a great snare drummer this guy's trying to make me.
Hmm.
So, and you keep winning little things and awards and stuff. Okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, because I'm seeing a little bit of success with what he's teaching me. So as long as I could keep studying with this guy, he was like a second father figure, in drumming. So yeah.
Great. Another one I think of is sacrifice. There came a point in time where you were pretty good at baseball, and but you were also really excelling, and your teacher and your dad kind of had this thing is like he's got to. So baseball got sacrificed for all of our good, but can you address any other things that you've had to sacrifice for doing what you love?
Well, let me just grab something here. You
Okay.
know, Grammy nominations and all these awards that you get through your career. But I have to say, my pride and joy is winning first place on my hardball team, First National Bank in 1966,
Oh my
and we were the league champs. And
wow.
I played right field for 2 innings, the last 2 innings. And I wanted to be better. Did you get a good look at that? I just want to make sure you see. Okay, so I loved baseball, and my dad was such a great athlete that I mean, when they closed his high school, he still held the scoring percentage with a two-hand set shot in basketball and the 220 and the 440 record. And he graduated in 39, I believe, and the school closed in 61, and he still held the record. So I was aspiring to be the next athlete in the family, and my mother's a musician, my dad's an athlete, so I was kind of torn. And one day my dad was an assistant coach on this team, and he said, all right, let's get one, like throw a ground ball to third base. I was playing third, and he hit the ball, and I patted my Montgomery Ward's glove, and I got down, the ball went right under my glove into left field between my legs. And from home plate you heard him say, well, you look like a croquet wicket out there. And I knew my days were numbered, because you can't make those mistakes, if you're going to be good. And then I hit a ball off right center field wall in batting practice, and I got thrown out at first base. So he says, first time I've ever seen anybody hit a ball that far, run in place and be thrown out at first, you know. So it looked like I was running in place. So yeah, it's okay. And then I got cut. I was the last guy cut on the seventh grade basketball team. And the next week I won my first drum contest. And my dad had driven me to the contest. I came out of the door and he said, I believe that's what you need to be doing. Because I think he didn't want to be embarrassed, you know.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, look, give me the athletic award in the family. You know, you go play the drums. You can do that, you know.
Got it.
So it wasn't really a sacrifice because the writing was on the wall. I mean, I could still love baseball, but I wasn't going to be a participant. So it wasn't a huge because by that time I really started loving drums more than and music more than any sports, you know. But tennis I could still kind of keep doing, and that so I did that for 35 years. That was my sport really. So.
Okay. All right. I have the word respectful down. I see this reverence that you have for the music and the musicians who have come before you and keeping your memory alive for the contributions to not only the music, but what they did for you personally. And I'm wondering, do you feel this sense that you owe it to these people to keep legacy and the traditions and all that and their honor and all that stuff? Is it just part of the music or is it part of you?
Yeah, in an answer, yes, because they saw something in me that they trusted their information with, and they shared information with me that I know they didn't share with a lot of other people, if any other people.
Mm,
So I held that very dear to my heart about these people because they're, you know, Matt Wilson pointed out something. A former student kind of was dogging me about something, you know, and he said, "Listen, man, your teacher is your teacher for the rest of your life. They're taking their time to show you things, and whether you want to acknowledge that or not, that teacher is your teacher because it's going to come out every time you play the instrument. Something that teacher said is going to come out 10 years later, you know, 10 minutes later, but you can't turn your back on your teachers because they're spending time with you. If you didn't like them, they spent time to help you and help you progress. So for me, I all my teachers I really had a wonderful relationship with, and I feel I owe it to them. A lot of times, the people don't know who they are,
sure.
and that I feel like it's my job to keep their memory alive and honor them by their talent and what they did to offer everything they could offer to me to make me a better person and a better musician. So yeah, I'm very respectful of that. I was raised in a family that was like that. I was the youngest person in the family. We had 66 members at one time. And I always got along with my aunts and my great aunts and my grandmother more than I did kids my age. In school, I always drifted toward the older adults because I was kind of old for my age. I was mature for my age. And so I think that helps that I wasn't rebellious. You know, I came up, you know, I was in my early teens during the Vietnam War started, and a lot of my friends are doing protests, and I'm saying, well, let's wait and see where this is going to go. I mean, I didn't just jump out and start growing my hair and buy a VW van and you know drive around and I mean I was like, well, wait a minute, let's see what's going to progress here. So I was never really rebellious, nor was I overly conservative either,
Mhm.
but sensible, I guess, would be the way that I would describe my outlook during my youth, and logic, you know, using a lot of logic and from an older perspective, maybe like a little more mature for my age. So I think does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I show you my baseball trophy?
Is there a bowling one to go with it too? Or
Oh, no, 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 because it messed up my thumb. I couldn't play the ride cymbal, man. You know, the bowling I had to give up. Yeah, yeah.
um, another word is definitely that I see all the time is principled. And what I mean by that is it seems to me that you have a reason behind every single thing that you do in both music and in life. And it's so evident because whenever I ask you a question, you don't even hesitate to think about it. You already, it's like you've already thought this through.
Can I answer this? Go ahead. Sorry.
I yield the floor.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your
Oh,
question.
that's all I had to say.
That's right. Okay. So, so uh, I think this music demands that. You know, there's no I mean, why are you playing things? Why think of what you're playing and why you're playing it. And John Clayton and Gerald Clayton and I were in residence, guest in residence at the Monterey Jazz Festival a couple of 3 years ago. Who knows now?
Right.
But we were giving a workshop, you know, and here are the grand old bass player and drummer, your rhythm team for 45 years, and you know, and here's young Gerald, and Gerald had the line of the clinic, and John and I just kind of looked at each other and went, "That's it." Somebody asked him what he thought about when he was improvising and playing this music, and he said, "Honesty and clarity. I want everything I say to be something I really mean to do, and I want to send the message clearly to the listener and to the other musicians." So you have to be honest about what you're playing. You don't just get up and execute the rudiments, you know. Why am I playing this? Thad Jones, mean what you say, or don't say it. And that's kind of, you know, that's kind of what I go by with what I'm playing when I'm approaching the music, and I only want to play with people who feel the same way. And I'm playing to make everybody else on the bandstand sound better than they, or as good as they can, and maybe better than they think they can, but I expect that in return. I just did a concert 2 nights ago with Gerald and John, and I play differently in that setting than I do in other settings, but every other setting I play differently than that other setting. You know, the organ trio with the Kiko and Graham, I'm hanging it out. You know, as Von Olin would say, some of those fills are taking you all the way over the cliff, baby. You know, and you got that big organ there. It's like you could just like play with a big band. With the trio, our dynamic range is wide too, but there's a lot of finesse and delicate things sometimes and intricate that are difficult, but we try to make it sound easy. I mean, so every setting that I'm playing in, it's not just one way of being clear. You know, here's the cross stick on 2 and 4, and I'm going to be clear about the time. It's clear about all the ideas I want to get across so I can embrace you with what I'm playing and invite you into what I'm doing to offer this music to you so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on the next one that I would say is
I'm
selfless.
sorry, Max. I'm
Oh,
really
perfect
sorry.
lead-ins, perfect lead-ins.
I'm a mind reader, I guess. I'm in the wrong profession. Let me grab a crystal ball here, and apparently I don't need one. You know.
I don't is my personal opinion that you cannot play this music in jazz and be selfish. You have to be selfless. And you talk about always giving back to the music, trying to provide a comfy couch for your bandmates. But the one that really got me, and it was just a complete mind shift for me, was somebody. A lot of people get nervous when they play and stuff, and sometimes it's not because they're not prepared. Sometimes it is, and all that kind of stuff. But they don't like playing in front of people and all this kind of stuff. And your response when somebody asked that one time was, "That's being selfish because it's about the music. It's not about you." You know, and to me that is such a mind shift. So could you address selflessness in your music and how it works? And
Yeah. Well, I think not completely selfless, but you're right. I think you have to have self-confidence and know that you can get there and do the job, you know, so you can't take yourself out of the picture entirely.
one of my
But
next ones was mindset versus confidence of
yeah,
humble.
okay. Okay.
I laughed.
I guess we're done, right? So my experience, I choked once, and that was at Charlie's Playboy Lounge in Philadelphia, and they had a linoleum floor and wrought iron around the bandstand with Monty Alexander and John Clayton, and I had replaced Bobby Durham, who had just left Monty's trio, and he lived 2 blocks down the street. And he decided to come in and had a cigarette and the hat. He looked, you know, catting, and he had a tough guy reputation anyway. And here I am, 21 years old, and And about four tunes later, Philly Joe Jones walks across the front of the bandstand with a party of four and sits down in the first red vinyl booth next to my drums. And I'm good. So I got stereo panning and I just choked. I've been transcribing this guy to my right, for like 4 or 5 years. And here he is. What am I doing playing the drums? So I
Mhm.
lost confidence in what I was doing. And Monty and John knew it, but they made me sound good and got me through it. And I just shook my head after the set, and John said, "Listen, man, go meet these guys." He said, "Get over it. Just go meet these guys. You're the drummer in the band now, not Durham." And I said, "Well, okay." And it actually helped because Bobby wasn't real kind to me, because of the way he heard me play, and it was sad. So Monty introduced me to Durham, and I had my hand out like this, and Durham took a cigarette out of his mouth. He goes, "Yeah, I heard you." And he put the cigarette back in, and that was it. I said, "Well, it's a pleasure meeting you." So I went over to Philly Joe, and John said, "It can't be any worse with Philly Joe." So I actually asked Philly Joe for a lesson, and he agreed to it. And I went out the next day and had a lesson from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. in his place. And it was life changing for me. And that's the last time that I got nervous and choked on a gig because John said, that's kind of selfish that you're just thinking about yourself and how nervous you are. What about Monty? What about me? We need you.
Mhm.
So if that happens to you, play for us because we need you. Don't just think about you got this guy here and here. Yeah, you're being selfish. So that was the last time that ever happened.
Mhm.
And the shyness also sometimes if somebody's trying to help you and you're so shy, it makes people go the other way with you. It's like, okay, I'm spilling my heart out to you of what all these people told me, and you're too shy to receive it. You need to do something to fix that. So get over that somehow. So that whole thing, that's just people start going the other way. They won't help you. So and I want these people to help me. So that's why I just turned a switch on and that was it. I've never been nervous since. I'm in that chair because I belong there. I've done more homework than anybody. I know about this gig more. I know more about the leader. Woody Herman's from Warsaw, from Polish descent. He lives in Milwaukee. His wife's name's Charlotte. She's a hoofer, and his daughter is Ingrid. And I mean, he was played lead alto in Isham Jones' big band and took it over when Isham became ill. The more you know about the gig that you're going to take, you're the only person who belongs in that chair. And
Mhm.
if you seize that opportunity like that, then there's no reason to be nervous because you own the job.
Right. Beautiful. Awesome. Um, save the best for last.
Uh-oh. You mean I didn't cover it already?
You covered the first half. Um,
Okay.
the word for me is you're balanced. And I said that you have confidence versus humbleness. But the one that really I want you to address, because they're polar opposites to me, and yet you're 100% both of them. And that's seriousness versus humor and comedy. You when you get on the bandstand, you don't mess with the music. It's about the music. I've seen you go into a trance, which maybe you could even talk about sometimes. Is like how you listen. Are you hearing everything? I mean, you're like just kind of staring out there, but I know you're hearing everything in a serious, and yet you're the funniest guy on the planet, and you do that on the bandstand too. I mean, when you think of Clayton Hamilton band, it just radiates so much joy and fun, and everybody is passionate, and it's just like this family, just grooving and stuff. But you're serious about the music and stuff. So could you address those kind of polar opposites and how it works with you?
Um, yeah, I think we play our personalities in this music. It's the only kind of music that allows that. People want to hear what kind of day you had. They come in to hear you play, and they can kind of tell what kind of day you had, just by what you're playing and how maybe you started out with a bad day, but they hear the joy by the end of the chorus, that okay, worked it out. Now they're standing up on the back of my neck as I'm describing this because this is what happens, and that's where the passion is.
Mhm.
So I think maybe sense of humor more than comedy
Right.
is what I bring without trying to. It's just I'm playing my personality, and if something strikes me funny, there's going to be a giggle on the bandstand. There's going to be inside jokes with the band. And Jake Hanna, you know, he put everything so succinctly into one line, like for big bands. He said, the trouble, the great drummer, with Woody Herman and Maynard Ferguson and the Merv Griffin Show, and many, many others, Bing Crosby. And he said, the trouble with big bands, they're just too many people. So meaning there's 16 people telling the drummer what they're doing wrong. Everybody knows your job better than you. And then he'd say for a shout chorus, forget all that stuff in the arrangement. Find one place in the shout chorus, lay for it, and clobber the hell out of it, and go on and play time the rest of it. So he would really reduce everything down to just one thing. And he said, Joe LaBarbera and I played his memorial with the Woody Herman alumni band here in Los Angeles. And his family had done a great video of him, much like your video that you did that I'm still torn up about, man. That's just great. Thank you. And in the video, Jake said, I don't like to play with people that don't have a sense of humor. If they're not funny, I don't want to play with them. Meaning be serious about this music. Take it seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously. Be serious about how you can play this music, but I think a lot of the problem with jazz is people get so serious about what we're doing, and we're on our soapbox preaching about where we think jazz is and where it came from and what we're going to do with it. And it's like, are you I don't hear this in your music. I don't hear the love in you. I don't hear the passion in your music. It's like you're angry, and it's okay to be angry and play the music, but you still have to get your point across to the listener. And I always keep the listener and the audience in mind. I don't play to them, but they're in my mind when I'm playing. And if a lot of things have come from me dropping a stick, or like I dropped a brush on the floor, Tom, and the audience went crazy. And I'm going, what are they making fun of me for? Oh, it was a music. I did it again. It's like, okay, let me build off of that on my solo. So a lot of ideas come from a sense of humor if you allow it. But if you're taking yourself so seriously, then this music gets very, very serious, and you might as well play it in a practice room with your other bandmates, because you're not reaching anybody really. And again, I'm not talking about play to the audience. Invite the audience into what you're doing, but don't play down and expect that the audience is dumber than you. And let me play something that's going to get them. So. Did that answer your question? The sense of humor. I think be serious about the music, but don't take yourself too seriously.
I think about you sat in and played a tune with us at Michigan State one year at Byron Center. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and you leaned over to the high school bass player, and you told him he's playing. He's petrified because he's playing with you, and you said, "You sound pretty good." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then a minute later, you said, "How do I sound?" He's like, he asked me when I'm playing how
Well, that's the comment that's like, get out of yourself, like, you're listening to me, right? Instead of saying, are you listening to me? It's like, so how do I sound, man? We're playing together. And it levels the playing field that I need you, the band needs you, and they were sounding good, but also have fun, and I'll say sometimes, are you having fun when we're playing, and it's like, well, oh, yeah. I was like, okay, then they'll lighten up a little bit, supposed to enjoy this. This is the joy that we're supposed to have when we play this music, it ain't digging ditches. I mean, unless you love doing that, but this is joyous.
To me, it's always about celebration.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you do that when you play, Max. Rodney does. Uncle G. That faculty is too much up there, man. I love that whole faculty. I've recommended your school to so many people, and then they find out that I know you too well, and so they. No, seriously, just such a great staff, and that's what everybody does there, is invite people into their playing and play to make everybody sound great. Young Rodney Whitaker, man, it's just what I love playing. I love being around him, and all the people on the faculty.
It's so amazing. It just creates this family atmosphere. I mean, everybody's vying for trying to get in the ensemble, and for that first day,
Yeah,
once that's done, he's like, go practice together, listen to music together, hang with each other. And it's one,
right.
people are so supportive. It's just a beautiful scene. So he and
Yeah.
Cookie are all responsible for that. So,
Well, sure. And it's a continuation of what they have experienced in their lives to get them where they are. Randy Napoleon, I met when he was in college, an underclassman at University of Michigan.
mhm.
And he had the Freddie Green down then. And I said, when you get out of here, call me. And if you want to come to LA, he comes to LA. He's in the Clayton Hamilton Orchestra. We do a session with Michael Buble. Buble steals him out of the band, so but he's grateful for those experiences. And then you turn around and do the same thing for other people. So I had to give him a hard time. I said, I got you out of Michigan, and then you go right back into Michigan.
No, he
the,
talks to
st-
me about you
the
all
state.
the lessons he's learned. So he's so thankful and grateful to you. So
Well, I'm really proud of him. He's one of my favorites.
such an amazing person, dear friend. So,
Mhm.
well, that was all the adjectives I had for you. Was I off on any of them, or
Oh, I think it's great that you proposed those, and I answered him with a 2 for 1. I mean, I'm a very busy man, so it worked out really well. But
um,
Mac, I have to say thank you for the video, and I know how much you love this music and how much it guides our lives, and following our passion to do it. And what would we do without it? It's a privilege to get to play this music.
mhm.
And I've said that to various people who have been nervous. I won't name names, but your students know all of them, and they're ready to go on stage. How am I going to play tonight? Such and such in the audience. I said, I'm with you playing drums. I'm not with them. I'm playing drums with you, and we get to play for them. It's not we have to go play for them. We get to play. So we've got to keep that in mind that this can be taken away from us at any time, and you have to cherish the spot that you get to by getting to play this music and getting to share your talent. Even though you might downplay how talented you are, other people will tell you how talented you are and benefit from that. So we've got to offer what we have to other people, and you do that too, Max, and you offer your personality, and that's why so many people love you.
Oh, too kind. Thank you. Appreciate you. Um, I have four completely unrelated questions to conclude, but
Oh, I thought we were done. Okay, well, I take all that back then until I hear these next four. By the way, can you send all that the tribute behind you? Can you get all that stuff back to me by Friday?
everything but everything but
Yeah.
the Hamilton action figure I don't have yet. I'm
Oh, you'll find one.
um, John Clayton. Um, you talk a lot about what I would like you to unpack a little bit your relationship. We all know that you met at Indiana, but why did you two hit it off? Did you listen to music together? Did you like each other? Did you have similar interests? It's been what 45 years or whatever now. You play he's the relationship musically and personally just is on a whole another level. You can complete each other's sentences musically. And one of my questions is that a disadvantage because you know so well that you tune out sometimes because you already know what you're going to do, or does it just take you to a level that nobody else is going to be able to do because you got this connection? It reminds me of Wynton Branford a little bit in the
Yeah.
early days of they living with each other growing up and that kind of a thing. So can you unpack how this has developed and what's kept it going? And
Well, I think the latter of what you described is what is the advantage of knowing somebody so well. And if we bring Monty Alexander into that picture, even though we were together for 2 years, it was 50 weeks a year for two solid years, and we were all on the same page mentally and musically. We could all finished. We would know where somebody was going to land before they got there. But the trick is to not, not say na 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 na. I beat you to the punch. It's just
Right.
like letting the music see if they're going to go, but they're that's where we're going to land, and then you can start shaping the next section into where you can offer them to go. So I think it's an advantage knowing somebody. And by the way, this is the 49th year from us meeting in Indiana.
Wow.
We met, I went to Indiana in 71 as a freshman, and John came in 72, and I left in 73. So I think, like I said, I didn't make a band my first semester. So I wasn't really one of the hot jazz drummers that they were looking at the time, even though in my own mind I thought I was. But I have to give a shout out to my good friend Peter Erskine, who just survived uh, a, a, a fatal heart attack. So he's doing fine. He's doing great. They caught it before he had the heart attack. But that son of a gun beat me out of the first band when I was a freshman, and so uh, uh, I didn't think that I belonged there. It's like, but I kept going on my route of who I thought I should be listening to and playing. It just didn't fit that program. And then second semester, I got in the band, the third band that played Basie and Thad. And so I was like, okay, I'm home now. So John came in my second year, sophomore year, and I'd been elevated up to the second band, which is still playing Oliver Nelson and Thad Jones. We weren't doing David Baker things. We were playing, the stuff that I had been listening to mostly. And John made David's band right out of the gate. I mean, he came in, had already been on Henry Mancini's summer special TV show that Ray sent him in as a 17-year-old and so he was miles ahead of where I was musically and had all this knowledge growing up in LA. And here I am from Richmond, Indiana. So when John arrived at Indiana, everybody's going, oh, this is Ray Brown's protege. We got to go listen to all the rehearsals and jazz. So the rehearsals were like a concert. All of us were sitting in the room listening to the band rehearse, and John was just knocking it out of the park. So I had a gig, believe it or not, 6 nights a week with a piano trio and a singer who was a third string quarterback on the football team. And we opened a resort with the entertainment at a resort there in Bloomington. So the bass player, who's still a dear friend of John's and mine, Chuck Neneker lives out here. He had to do some opera or something, so we needed a sub. And I said, "Can I get the sub?" And he said, "Sure." So I asked John, bravely walked up to him after one of these rehearsals, "Can you sub on this gig?" I told him what it was. And he says, "Yeah, can you pick me up?" And I had this big 68 Ford Galaxy that a bass would fit in. I said, "Well, yeah." So I picked him up, drove me to the gig. And by the way, he had a big van. He just wanted to see how serious I was. So I played quarter notes with this guy, and it was like I've never felt a bass as great as Chuck is, and Chuck would agree to this too. When you got Ray Brown, pushing you along, and we're sitting in Indiana, it's like, okay, well, I need to talk to this guy about what I need to do. And so that's where he said, "Who do you want to play with?" And I said, "Well, Oscar, Ray." And he says, "Well, how many records do you have of Oscar?" I said, 12. And he said, "You need 312. How many do you have?" And so on down the line. So I just went out and bought all those records the next day and started digging deeply into that. And he said, "When you get ready, I want you to play note for note what Ed Thigpen played on any Oscar Peterson track with Ray and Ed. Give me a couple of days. I'll dust off my transcription of what Ray played, and we're going to put headphones on and play to Oscar Peterson." And we did that note for note. And I turned to him and I said, "I can play with Oscar Peterson." He said, "Yep." And we were playing right along with it. And that instilled confidence. And personally, we got along. We're both funny. We're both pranksters. We're both serious about what we do. We got together and listened to stuff. Some he didn't like of mine, some I didn't like of his. Um, but our goals were the same. And we started planning then, like, man, maybe wouldn't it be fun to have a big band, kind of like based on Thad and Mel, two leaders, and maybe we can make that work. So we just started talking about it way back then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the relationship grew. And then he started recommending me to people because that's how I got the Tommy Dorsey band. Murray McEachran called him, and he had played with Murray in Palm Springs. So I need a bunch of young college kids that will come out for $225 a week, ride the bus, play Tommy Dorsey music in 1974. And I turned him down, I said, nah, I'm going to wait on Woody, I think. So I had my lesson with Von Olin, who I studied with for just 8 months, but he turned me around like that.
Mhm.
And he says, after the lesson, so what's been going on? I said, well, I turned down the Tommy Dorsey band. I got an offer. But he said, what for? And I said, well, I'm going to wait on Woody or Basie. And he says, what big bands have you played with? The IU Jazz Ensemble? And I said, oh, I should take it. He says, yeah, go out and learn how to treat a big band, play for dancers, get it together so that you're ready for Woody's band. I said, well, okay. So I drove back to Bloomington and I called John and I said, you probably gave it to somebody else, but I'd like that Tommy Dorsey gig if it's still open. And he says, I didn't call anybody else. I knew you'd call me back. So that kind of describes our friendship. I mean, we know each other pretty well. And then the next month, I was in Kansas City with a suitcase and a set of drums, rehearsing with the Tommy Dorsey band. And then it just happens one musician goes on Lionel Hampton's band, takes you with them, and then John called me again for Monty Alexander. He didn't have a drummer. Monty said, "Do you have a drummer you're comfortable playing with?" John recommended me to Ray Brown. So play your butt off every night, and people are going to start talking about you, and that's how you go from that gig to the next gig.
I do need to put a disclaimer on the video. You were not in the pictures of the Tommy Dorsey and Lionel Hampton pictures. With all my stalking, I could not find any recordings or pictures of you with either of those two bands. So
That's because I bought all of them when I saw them. I had the blonde helmet, on a lot of those things. And I actually, in fairness, on Lionel Hampton's band, I was only on 3 months, and then he laid the band off to do a Broadway show with Bette Midler, and you had to be in the New York Union.
oh,
So I was still in Richmond, Indiana, as local.
right.
And so I was only in his band for 3 months,
Okay.
and the Dorsey band I was on for 9 months, and then I went back on for another month. But I'll see if I can get a picture of the Dorsey band with you. It's pretty funny. Yeah. You can add to your collection there behind you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
um, we've talked a little bit and jokingly, but I wanted to talk to you about a local community. I mean, we obviously when we become jazz musicians, we tell all the heroes, Monk and Parker and Dizzy and Louis Armstrong and all that stuff, but it starts somewhere. And even though Richmond is not a jazz mecca, there were people that gave you opportunities. I think there was like a husband and wife that you sat in with and played with, and band directors taking you under their wing. And actually, Harold Jones and Andy Simpkins came out of Richmond. So could you talk about your upbringing and how that influenced your playing and set you on a course to the masters and stuff too?
Yeah, actually, Richmond was a bit of a jazz mecca, but nobody in Richmond knew it. Jeanette Records was in Richmond, and
Hmm.
Star Pianos were built next to the Jeanette
Hmm.
factory. They merged as one company. Louis Armstrong, as you know, doing history on Louis Armstrong, such a fan that you are, brought his Hot 5 or 7, I forget which one, down to Jeanette because the recording process was ahead of what Chicago was
Yeah.
doing. Then the Victrola horn, where he had to stand farther back than the rest of the band to record, stand outside of the building, to get the balance. Um, so it was a Hoagie Carmichael, Billy Butterfield recorded Stardust there, I think, and so there's still a Jeanette Foundation, Star Jeanette, and they have a Facebook page that you can join. So there is that. And then not only did Andy and Harold come from there, Joe Hunt came from there, the drummer that taught at Berkeley for years
Hmm.
and played with Stan Getz and Astro Gilberto and Gary Burton. And,
Hmm.
and he's still living in Boston. So, I'm looking at these people, and I followed the husband and wife team that you talked about. It was Carol and John. They were married at the time. Carol Hedges, Carol Lou, and John Hedges. And the billboard out front, it was called Denny's. The owners were called Dentimans. That was their name, Dentimans. So that was Dinnie, and it was like the hot restaurant in Richmond. And they played every night. They played like 5, 6 nights a week.
Wow.
So you'd save up for your one good meal a month and get a steak out there. And, so we'd go out and we'd hear them play. And they're playing the Great American Songbook. She was a great swinging trio pianist. and after a band concert, my drum teacher and my band director took me out, and they had a plan for me to sit in, and I didn't know it.
Uh,
So at 15, they asked me to come up, and the first thing we played was Just Squeeze Me, and I knew it. And I played brushes, and they asked me to keep coming back and playing with them. And then they hooked me up with another piano player, Leo Ryan, and his brother Dean, who played gut strings bass, a lot of thump strings. And we played in the window of Elizabeth Parker's restaurant on Main Street in Richmond, Indiana. So I would jump back and forth between those jobs. And Leo Ryan was the pianist that Harold Jones played with from high school, and that was handed down. Joe Hunt first. I think no, was Joe Hunt second maybe. No, I think Joe was first and then Harold, because Joe Hunt lived in the common backyard of the piano player. And he heard him playing one day. He says, "You sound pretty good. You want to play with me?" So they hired him for the job. So it handed down from Joe Hunt to Harold. And then my civics teacher, Floyd Brown, who was a very a good drummer. And I learned a lot of things about brushes from him. And then I came in after that. So there's kind of lineage of Leo Ryan's trio with all these drummers coming in and playing. So yeah, there was two jazz trios. There were two jazz trios in town that you could go listen to. So, and a great music program in the schools. Everybody had an instrument if they wanted. They had an instrument in their hand by third grade, which is missing now, as you well know. So, you get started that early on it, and it's like, yeah, the computers can wait a little bit. I dig playing this, but now it's like by the time they get an instrument, they're already into everything else. So I think that's a big problem that has occurred from the difference of when I was growing up. That's all I lived for, was to be in band. If you could make the snare line in marching band, you could run for mayor when you graduated.
um, how did you get involved making cymbals and drums and hardware and cases and sticks? And most drummers, they might complain about it, but they're not going to do anything about it. You go out and design your own cymbal for what you want. What was the process? How did you inform yourself about what you wanted to get what you wanted and all that?
Well, I was informed, and I listened.
Hmm.
Uh, Back to the teachers thing, when Mel Lewis would talk about the profile of a cymbal and what made a good cymbal, and the thickness, and within the cymbal where the thickness needed to be and how thin the edges needed to be, and the bell this, and Shelley Mann and Papa Joe Jones, the brief meetings I had with Papa Joe, and they all lined up with each other.
Mm,
And so I kept that in mind. And then when they would hear my cymbals, they'd comment on them.
mm,
And yeah, that's what you need. That's da da da. And then you crack a cymbal, and it's dead, but you remember what it sounded like. And so it actually came about because I was with Aveda Zildjian for 17 years, but I only played their Christ cymbals. I didn't. They just keep sending me. Lenny DeMusio would send me cymbals, and like, well, this is kind of it, but it's not what I'm looking for. I like hand hammered cymbals,
mhm.
and A. Zildjian doesn't hand hammer cymbals. So, he said, well, what do you need? And I said, well, I was just offered from Turkey a company to redesign their whole line because they think I know more about it than they do,
Wow.
just by the way I've been talking about it.
Mhm.
And he said, don't do that. Send me what you need. So I sent him my cracked cymbals that I had, and they had a young man at the time by the name of Paul Francis who remained with the company for until this past year, and he was able to make the cymbals.
Mhm.
But they wouldn't make them for everybody, and I thought, well, that's not fair. That so this company, another company in Turkey, offered me a position, and I went over and I said, I think your cymbals are this, and why don't you try this? And because they asked, why aren't we selling cymbals? And so I corrected what I thought the problem was, and the three masters looked at it and said in Turkish to the owner, "That's not our symbol. This is his symbol. We didn't come up with this." The owner turned around to me and said, "Would you like your own signature symbol?" I said, "No, nobody wants to play a symbol with somebody else's name on it." He said, "Well, do you have a nickname?" And I said, "Yeah, Hammer." Perfect. We hammer the cymbals. We'll call it the Bosphorus Hammer. And so that's how I got involved in it. And then they wanted to sell company. You know, I didn't go over there meaning to do it.
We,
So,
you froze for a minute. Just
okay.
so you went over there. Did you got the hammer? And that's where we lost you.
Okay, yeah. So they turned to me and said, "This is your symbol. You know, it's not ours. You designed this." And so um, they wanted to sell the company eventually, and a friend of mine put together a team to buy the company, and they wouldn't do it unless I was one of the part owners. So, and business wise, I was owed a lot of royalties, so that's how we turned over that what they owed me into owning part of the company. So they believed in my designs, you know, and then business wise, that went south. We got another factory in Turkey, and they believed in us, but they business was bad, and shenanigans were pulled, and we said we got to get out of this. And Sabian bought the line then, so now it's Sabian hammer tone cymbals that they're making, and they're doing a heck of a job. So that's how I kind of backed into all that.
That's amazing.
Cymbal stands, I've always liked lightweight hardware. So Canopus asked me what was wrong with their stands, and I just told them what I thought was wrong, and they said, "Well, we're going to put your name on it." And I said, "Well, okay, you know." Um, the I used the Don Lemon Gretsch 8D drumstick when I was coming up, and at the time Duke Kramer with Gretsch, who they gave me an endorsement because they thought it was John Von Ohlen in the other room playing, you know, and it happened to be me. And they said, "Well, man, you need an endorsement." So that's how I got my first endorsement with Gretsch. Um, Duke Kramer, the president, said, "What stick are you using? You're on Woody Herman's band. You need to have your own stick." And I said, "Well, I'm using Don Lemon Gretsch 8D." And for those of you who don't know, Don Lemon was one of the greatest big band drummers, well, drummers, period, of all time, and was a huge influence on the second herd. Woody started the second herd with Don Lemon and built the band around Don Lemon. That's how great he was. And so, and a dear friend. He was terrific to me. And he said, "Well, Don's kind of retired in Florida now. We'll just take his name off and put your name." I said, "No, you can't do that because there's the reverence again.
Sure.
I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for Don Lemon. You can't take his name off of that." He said, "Well, what differences would you make to the stick if the shoulder breaks a lot up by the beat?" He says, "Well, we'll put more meat on the shoulder and see if you like it." And I said, "Okay." So they put an 8A shoulder on the 8D stick, but left the longer tip of the 8D on it, and that became the Jeff Hamilton 8D for Gretsch. So, you know, that's how I backed into that. And the brushes, wires kept flying out when I'm playing brushes. Ray said, "Don't I pay you enough money to buy a good, decent pair of brushes?" You know, and I'd been playing a Taiwan copy of the Regal tip that I love, but the wires are flying out. Little thicker handle, little thicker gauge wire. And went through playing all these different brushes. I had to have cortisone shots in my index knuckle because I was squeezing too hard on these other brushes. And a hand surgeon said, "Don't you know somebody that can make that brush better than the copy that you're playing?" And I said, "That's why you make $1 million a year wearing a white coat, and I go ding, ding, a ding for a living, you know." So I called Carol Collado and I said, "Can you make a brush like this?" And she said, "Yeah, but we're going to call it the Jeff Hamilton brush." You know, so I mean, it's all of the endorsements I've had. I've backed into. I've never approached anybody for an endorsement. They all come to me, and that's how that's a long answer, but that's how this happens.
That's great. Cool. Last question. How reflective are you of your past? Or you think about the future? I know you always say your favorite gig is the next one.
Right.
But do you reflect much, or are you thinking ahead a lot, or a combination of both? Or
Well, I mean, I don't dwell on you know, the Ray Brown record I did with Gene Harris, but I tend to take a lot of each band I was with, I learned a lot. And I thought, when I get my own band or I'm going to be a leader, these are things I want. These are qualities I don't want to do because I know what it feels like as a side person to have that done to you. So, you know, you just kind of compile what you want to be.
mm,
And so for me, I just want to play music with people who are like-minded, not the same exactly, but we have the same passion for the music we're playing and respect for it, and that play for each other to make each other sound great. And that's the future. Everybody says, "Well, what's the future of jazz?" For me, that's it. Playing the music that you love with people you love and allowing them into what you do, and them allowing you into what they're doing, and the music's going to go where it needs to go. Reflective, uh, there's a lot of satisfaction that I got early on, because when I played with the greats that I wanted to play with, I'd already achieved that, and I didn't get a new set of goals. There really weren't people that I aspired to, like I aspired to play with those four people.
Hmm.
So for me, it was rewarding to have had that opportunity, and I was grateful. And it's even more reflective on the friendships from from them being somebody you listen to on vinyl and transcribe, and then you're having dinner with them,
Right.
and they're calling you up to have dinner. It's not like, you're just hanging around. I got a dinner reservation at 8 o'clock. Meet me at the hotel. Da, 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 and so I miss the friendships and the hangs with these people as much as the music, because we play our personalities, I said before.
Hmm.
So you can tend to get a little grim in reflecting too much, because probably over half of the albums that you mentioned that I'm on, I'm the only one still living. And that's not a great thing to reflect on for me. Somebody just walked in the dressing room in Las Vegas with a Bam Bam CD, and he said, "Well, it took me a long time from 1989, but I'm going to complete it tonight." And he handed me the CD, and both Ray and Gene's signatures were on there. And I said, "Why the hell didn't you come over to me in 1989?" And he said, "It was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you had about 20 family members there, and I didn't want to interrupt." And I said, "All right, give me the CD." So I signed it. But it's, you do that enough, and it kind of gets to you that I miss those guys. I miss playing music with them. So I don't allow myself to get too reflective to the point of being sad about it, but joyous that, my goodness, we had a great time, and we did stuff together that won't be done again. That was a unique
Reflective
experience.
of the music that there's no generational gap. We got 20-year-olds playing with 90-year-olds all the time.
Or any other kind of gap.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So it's the beautiful thing about the music, but it's also one of the things, in your case, that becomes sad. And
Yeah. Can you play your butt off? Can you answer the bell with this music? That is all that matters with everybody I've played with.
hmm.
And I'd like to see more of that, because a lot of people are putting up some borders, of what needs to be in a band, and I didn't experience that with the people that I wanted to play with. I experienced it, but not with the people I really wanted to play with. So let's get rid of the gaps and make the music first and play music. Um, we both know and love Wynton Marsalis, and he's so inviting, with all that he's doing with that. And I just wish more people would have strong feelings about what they do, but open your arms to people who want to play this music, and invite them in and let them play, let them have a voice.
Yes, indeed. Last thing, you're going to play a concert for us that virtually. Can you just discuss a little bit what we're going to hear on this concert?
It's the trio with John Hamer. John's been in the band. This is his third year. And of course, the second year we didn't do much at all. We had like 4 gigs in January of 2020. And we played some things from the latest CD, Catch Me If You Can, and just chose some things that quite honestly, that we could remember after not playing for a year, and feel like we were comfortable enough playing. So, um, there aren't overdubs. It's us scrambling to try to remember some of the intricate stuff, and I let it go, because people, you need to see how we react to that when somebody doesn't remember something, and you get right back on the train. So, yeah, we recorded that, and then we're looking forward to the interactive master class too. So, all right.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for doing this. You didn't have to do this, and you're always so informative and entertaining and uh, passionate. I mean, it comes through everything that you do. We love you here at Michigan State, and what you mean to me. So thank you for everything. We love you. Best to you, and hope to see you very, very soon.
I hope so too, Max, and hugs to everybody in the faculty there. And so I don't know about Uncle G, man. I've still got a thing about Uncle G. You know, I have to share this with the students. The first words that came out of his mouth to me after I met him the first time at Michigan State, we had just played a set, and he came up to me and he's giving me that look, you know. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. You know, there are very few people that are older than me that can still give me a hard time. Here we go. I'm not out of school yet. And I said, so you're Mr. Gillespie? He says, uh-huh. He says, I'm happy you're here, but you know, we tried to get Roy Burns first, or Roy Haynes first. I said, okay, man, we're in, and we were instant friends. You know, he just laughed and threw his head back. You know, so I don't know. The jury's still out on him, but give everybody else a hug, will you?
Will do. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in person, everybody. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for taking the time to tune in and join us for this event. We look forward to the day when we can once again welcome you safely to our venues in person for the magic of live concerts. As patrons who have enjoyed the talents of faculty, students, and visiting artists, you are an important part of our music community, and you have supported us in so many ways. Of course, we welcome your financial support as we navigate this challenging time. See the links included on this page should you wish to make a secure credit card donation. Thank you for joining us today and for helping us make the power of music accessible. Together, we can make a difference.